Jump in and join the club and float this Whiskey River Reservoir. We're gonna spend the weekend in the deep end of a diving bar.
Good morning,
Good
ladies.
day, divers. Welcome to another edition of Women's Wednesday. We've got an amazing guest with us, Kim Iverson. We love your show. We're so happy to have you with us today. It's been really fun kind of looking into you. When we have a guest, I don't want to just like not know anything. I learned so much about you today. And I'm so glad that you are in independent media, doing what you're doing and fighting the way you are. Roar Media is a women-led network of independent media, and you are just out there slaying it for strong, decisive women getting information out there. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for being so receptive when I reached out. You never know. You send emails and I'm like, whoa, she got us back right away. That's rad.
It's because I'm staring at my phone all the time. I'm one of those people.
Aren't we all? Aren't we all?
And then I get my emails. Now. Yeah.
So how have things been for you in the last, I would say year? Lots of changes and adjustments?
Well, for me, I work from home normally, so it wasn't that much of an adjustment on that front. I definitely gained the COVID-19 pounds.
Me too. Me too.
I weighed myself this morning and I was like, oh no, I have to do something about this. It's like as far as I can let this go. I can't go any further now. There's no more excuse. I can't continue on like this. So, as far as my personal life, this actually was kind of a bittersweet year in a lot of ways because it was, crazy with the lockdowns and I saw the damage that was doing, and that was really devastating. But at the same time, I ended up having like a pandemic relationship and we moved in together and now we're getting engaged soon. And so that was like a good thing because we spent so much time. We've spent nonstop all of our time together for the last year, about a year now. So, and then, as far as the channel is gone, it was a real bummer of a year because I got completely censored. I was heavily soft censored.
Yeah, you were.
So that was rough. They wouldn't allow me to grow any subscribers or any new viewers for the entire year, almost the entire year.
Yeah, we're in the same boat. And we saw that with you, so many times you wouldn't be in my algorithm, even though I've got the bell on. I should know every time you're live. But I think Rockfin has really helped a lot of us out because now at least we have one place to go find all the people we like to watch.
Right. So, yeah. In one place.
Yeah.
And you actually had to deactivate your Twitter due to people being assholes, essentially.
Well, I think I was me also being an asshole.
At least you own it.
I just, it's not a good place for me and the type of person I am. I need, I'm a nuanced person, right? So something in a short one-liner is just not the way I can communicate something to people. And so Twitter is not a good medium for me. I come across very different. People always, when I would tweet, they would say, is this even Kim? Like they would get they just couldn't, they weren't sure if it was me or not because I sounded so different on Twitter. That's the way I am also in text messages. The people that I've worked with throughout the last decade refuse to text with me. They call me instead because they think that when they text with me, I sound angry or I sound a way that I'm not. So Twitter's just not my jam, and I had to deactivate the account because I realized this is a toxic environment. It is super toxic. The people there, everybody it's road rage on the internet.
It is.
So people are just behaving in a way that they wouldn't behave if they were standing next to you in person, So I had to get off of it for not only because everybody is an asshole, but because I'm one of them. I'm an asshole too on Twitter.
Admitting it's the first step. Right
yeah, at least you own it. You own it. So I want to give a shout out to all of our chats. Wow, what a turnout this morning. It's morning for some of us are. But hey, chat. Hey, Barbara Bartleson, Josh Davis. Hey, Josh, Anthony. Jilly Love, welcome, Jilly. Steve Cutler, glad to see ya. Let's see, who do we got over at Natural Progressive? Sharyar, glad to see you, Sharyar. Who else is over there? River Monkey. Wow, that's a crazy name. Lightning Rod, welcome. Osama, I see you, Osama. And let's see who's over on the Rockfin. Good morning, Rockfin. We love our Rockfinners because that is the future. We can't seem to grow on YouTube at all. And Rockfin has been growing amazing lately thanks to your guys' help and support. So keep it up. Thank you. Join us over on the Rockfin. You can always get content you're not getting on YouTube over at the Rockfin from all of us creators. I see all of us over there adding new stuff. So Fred Edwards, welcome. Osama, you're in two places. I see you. So welcome. Aj, you want to move us into the deck? So Kim, I don't know if you know our format, but pretty much we all just kind of bring stories, tweets, whatever we want to kind of chat about. We're like a generic talk, maybe, or generic view.
A non-neo-lib talk.
yeah, minus the neo-lib. So we're just going to start out. And I brought this clip of you, Kim, from, I want to say about 6 weeks ago when AOC was calling for censorship and screaming, why are you not taking these people down? Why are you not censoring them? So I figure we'll go from there into our conversation.
Okay. Knowing the information, then you will never dissent. So censorship is the most, there's a reason why it's the First Amendment, the first one, because it's so important. And our founding fathers knew it was that important. It needed to be number one. It's not even, look, many of you love your guns, but that's the Second Amendment. The First Amendment is free speech. And for our government leaders to be pressuring big tech, and this is coming from AOC, she absolutely, if you don't believe me, you can look it up for yourself. She sat there in those congressional hearings with big tech and she said, why are you not censoring enough? Essentially, she didn't say that exact quote, but her questioning of Mark Zuckerberg was one that was very pointed and asking for more censorship. Why aren't you stopping lies, is what she said. You allow lies? Well, I don't want Mark Zuckerberg to be the person to determine what is a lie and what isn't a lie. I don't trust the giant mega corporations and big tech with information. I don't trust them because I believe that the silencing of, I don't trust them to pick and choose which is okay dissent and which is not okay dissent. I don't trust them to do that. I don't trust them to tell me what is fake news and what is real news, because we saw all what happened with many of the news stories that they said, well, this is fake, so we're not going to allow this to spread. And then sure enough, only weeks later, we find out, no, it was actually very true.
Joy, what do you think? I can't agree more with what Kim says here.
Yeah, right on. I definitely don't trust them to show what they interpret as real and fake. We get censored as it is. They their algorithm searches for certain words, like when we say like EPSTAEIN, like those kind of things. It's like, you can't even say certain words. So to leave it up to Zuckerberg and people like that who are, bajillionaires, that is a very privileged take. And AOC as a rep, she spends a hell of a lot of time on Twitter, trying to combat GOP saying things about her. So, when in fact, I would really appreciate if she would tweet about actual issues. Tweeting is violence in some ways to her. I totally agree with what you're saying. Absolutely.
So Kim, we saw Zuckerberg and Twitter, Dorsey, this week in front of hearings, and a lot of people came out of there like, oh, Dorsey fights more for the First Amendment than Zuckerberg ever will. He'll be the one that's going to stop this. Do you think that Dorsey is more for the First Amendment than Zuckerberg?
No, Dorsey's the worst of the three.
Yeah.
Dorsey's actually the worst of the three. Twitter they have always actively removed accounts of people that they think are, not in line with their community standards. They remove tweets or block tweets. They block accounts and remove people. We've seen Twitter is very reactionary. I mean, like the platform, Dorsey is very reactionary when he makes these decisions, like with the New York Post and the Hunter Biden story or other things. They just do it right away. Whereas at least Mark Zuckerberg, I actually think Mark Zuckerberg in the beginning was the best of the three. He tried. He was like, I don't know if we really believe in this kind of thing, like censoring and he's like, it's kind of antithetical. And he even refused to remove, and he is I believe he's Jewish, and he refused to remove like Jewish, like anti-Semitic or Holocaust denying posts for the longest time. And he was the last one that was hunkering down saying, they're allowed to believe what they believe. So actually Zuckerberg had been the better of the three, but I think Zuckerberg received more heat because of it. He got the Cambridge Analytica stuff against him. And I think he's received more heat because he was the most relaxed. But Dorsey's the worst. Dorsey's absolutely the worst.
I gotta agree. Amber, what do you think?
I actually, in watching their testimony, and I've watched quite a bit of it over the years, I thought Dorsey was at least able to stand up and push back a little, and the other two were not willing to push back at all. And part of the reason of that is I think Facebook has realized how to monetize the information in a way where they need all that data. And Twitter's just now starting that process, to a certain extent with, the changes that are literally happening this year. We've seen massive changes in what's happening. But, I went down the Q rabbit hole last night and have been watching. I mean, not that I haven't watched bits and pieces already, but it was there's a great HBO documentary out, and it talks a lot about free speech, and free speech has been one of, it is one of the principles that we founded this country on in ways to make sure that we didn't end up in places we are now. And obviously that, there is that fine line between appropriate and hate and violence. And I think those lines are getting blurred. It feels like the lines are getting blurred.
Yeah, I agree. They're very, very blurred. So just to kind of keep us on the AOC topic that this was supposed to be, AOC has not only been calling for censorship, but now she's buddying up even more with the establishment and Mama Bear. And this is Shama Sawant on Bad Faith talking about this is an absolutely wrong move. She needs to be fighting them. She needs to be taking them on. Now is the time.
Kshama Sawant is an elected official. She's a socialist. I believe she's in Seattle. She was elected in Seattle.
Can confirm.
Probably, I think it's fair to say, one of the furthest left, if not the furthest left, elected official in the country. She's a really fascinating character, really, really interesting. She went on the Bad Faith podcast with Virgil and Bree, friends of the show, and they were talking about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and the strategy that they've employed, the strategy that's been employed by the furthest left Congress people in D.C. So let's see what she has to say, and then we'll respond.
Remember what they were saying when we were arguing that when a section of the left was saying, yes, absolutely, there is an opportunity instead of just voting for Pelosi as speaker, actually the squad should withhold the vote and use it as a moment to build real pressure for Medicare for all. But what we said, and at least what Socialist Alternative said, was that it's not just as some sort of drama or sort of meaningless political theater, but to actually use the force the vote tactic in the context of helping to build mass rallies and conferences around Medicare for all. But at that time, AOC and also sections of DSA, they said that, well, this is not the moment to use your political capital. And in fact, I remember AOC in her response to force the vote, and I think she genuinely meant this. She said, instead of this, we should fight for something winnable, which is $15 an hour. Well, here we are talking about $15 an hour. And again, Biden, Harris, Schumer, Pelosi, all the stalwarts, big business stalwarts of the party are throwing excuse after excuse. It's the parliamentarian, it's the rules, it's the decorum, it's Joe Manchin. So I think what we have to point to is sort of the endless logic of making excuses for the Democratic establishment. So today it's this excuse, tomorrow it's another excuse. Yesterday it was Medicare for all, today it's $15 an hour. This is a failed strategy. I think that's what we need to point out. It's not so much about whether AOC is genuine or not. The question is the strategy of not being willing to go into open combat against the establishment, is that working or not? And it's clearly not.
So we've seen time and time again, the Democrats think they're battling somebody. The progressives are battling the Democrats, and, you know, they capitulate every time. Kim, do you think that this is a smart, check my mic. Can you guys hear me? Mic check. Okay.
Yeah.
So do you think that this is a smart move to, go inside the Democratic Party, take it over, and think that we're actually going to budge them or move them?
Well, I mean, I think the idea was a smart idea. In the beginning, it was this idea that, and I think that could have happened. And I think it could happen if we didn't have, poodles in there instead of like Rottweilers. Yeah. Right. And so the fact that they're unwilling to use their power, and the thing is that they have been brainwashed to believe they think, hey, listen, nothing is worse than the Republican Party. So these Democrats, we're better off with these establishment Democrats who don't do anything than to be stuck with Republicans. And I don't agree with that logic. I think that if you continue to take that route, then you just don't ever go anywhere. You're just complacent in a bad relationship. And you're never willing to say, you know what, I'm willing to risk it. Look, it's like from a relationship perspective, being single sucks a lot of times, right? You got to date. There's a lot of bad eggs out there. You never know who you're going to run into. There's all these bad things that could possibly happen to you when you go out on these dates, but you got to leave the bad relationship and try. And hopefully you end up with something better. And maybe for a while you don't. And that's kind of what they have to be willing to do. And they're just not. They want to stay in their bad relationship.
Yeah.
Well, and especially because we know that they're really hyper focused on progressives anyway. Not, we're far more a danger to the establishment than right wing, Republicans. We know that. We've seen them put their money there year after year again, but they still push the political theater. And that's what's keeping people divided versus,
Joy, you want to jump in here? I think Amber left it.
Kim, I'm actually curious to what you think.
Red team, blue team versus.
Are we crashing?
Amber, something's wrong with your mic.
Amber's in slow motion.
And I see a bit of that shifting.
So
go ahead, Joe.
Kim, I'm kind of curious to your thoughts, and in some way it is a moot question, but as someone who interviewed AOC when she was still progressive,
I didn't interview her. I didn't interview AOC.
No, I did.
Oh, you did? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So as someone who has interviewed her when she was actually left, there's no question she has changed.
Yeah.
Do you think that she was earnest at first? She was an activist. She had the intention of being left and then was kind of corrupted? Or do you think that she was just, a bad actor from day one?
No, I think she was genuine in the beginning. I think she really thought, hey, I'm going to do this great thing. She was surprised she won. Also, she kind of had that Trump moment. Yeah. What? I won? Oh, no. Now this means I got to go do something with it. And when she got in there, I think she really had the intention that she was going to shake things up and make a lot of change. And I think that the establishment got to her and said, they basically laid out the laws of the land in Congress and said, without our approval, you don't get anything. You don't get committee assignments. You don't get anything. You're just basically nothing. The problem with that, and she bought into that, I think, at first, and kind of said, oh, okay, well, I don't want to lose out and not be here in 2 years.
Right.
But the problem with that is that AOC actually doesn't need a committee's hearing. She doesn't need a committee seat. No. She has the power of the bully pulpit. All she has to do is go to Twitter or Instagram or wherever it is she's doing things, Snapchat, and make a lot of noise. That is really what her job should have been. I don't think she needed to be on a single committee or make a single friend. I think she could have just put a lot of pressure on them from the outside, but they didn't want that. She didn't want that. And I think ultimately she got corrupted by the fame.
Yeah,
so everybody, it's something different. And for her, it wasn't about the donors. I think it was about the fame.
The cover of Vogue magazine. Yeah, I agree. And I've been saying that from day one. She's more like I call her a reality TV progressive. She's up there with Kim Kardashian for her stardom. Welcome back, Amber. I see you had a router reset.
I hate that. Yeah, close down a few windows, but here I am. So I'm not sure what you guys heard, but yeah, well, let's carry on.
I don't know. It was very weird and slow and kind of drawn out. So some of them heard it, but yeah. So moving on, Ghislaine Maxwell got new charges filed on her this week. Just a quick clip on that.
British socialite Ghislaine Maxwell is facing new charges for sex trafficking. On Monday, U.S. prosecutors said the 59-year-old helped to recruit a fourth underage girl for sex for the late financier and convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Maxwell was a longtime Epstein confidant and former girlfriend. In addition to the new charge of sex trafficking of a minor, the amended indictment against her now also includes a charge of sex trafficking conspiracy. It covers alleged crimes stretching from 1994 to 2004. Including accusations that she paid the girl hundreds of dollars for each sexual act with Epstein. The girl was 14 years old when the grooming began, the indictment said. Maxwell has previously pleaded not guilty to helping Epstein procure and groom 3 other underage girls for sex. She has been held in a Brooklyn jail since her arrest last July. Her lawyers did not immediately respond to her request for comment. It is unclear whether the new charges will lead to a postponement of her trial, which is scheduled for July 12th. Maxwell now faces a total of 8 counts against her, including earlier charges of perjury.
So 8 counts for being the madam to J.E. That's all I can really say here. But as many of you know, I have been working on a 3-part special. We started out last week with Isaac Cappy. This week is Jeffrey Epstein. Next week will be Ghislaine. And you can catch those over on Rockfins on Friday night. Man, being in that rabbit hole for the last week, I got to tell you, that's all I'm dreaming about. It's all I'm thinking about. And people ask me, well, why are you even bothering with this story? He's dead. She'll probably get a slap on the wrist. Everybody's forgot about it. But I think the biggest part of that story, the story that needs to be looked into, is his friends, his associates. The records shows that somebody probably took his spot. Somebody is out there being the new J.E. Do you guys think that they will actually pursue this and she will be punished?
It's hard to say what's going to happen, but there's definitely a lot of people that are on pins and needles waiting for some shoes to drop. And we saw that throughout last year that occasionally, there would be some little hint of progress, some little arrest here and there, but it was never the big, the big hit that they've been asking for. So, somebody's still working behind the scenes, I think.
Well, some people on the Twitter machine were saying she's going to end up suicided, just like J.E. And, what's going to happen is they're probably going to say to her, we'll give you a deal if you give us stuff on Trump and things like that. And Clinton may be one of the people. Well, he is one of the people involved, and that's a very dangerous. You got Prince Andrew, you got Elon Musk, you got all these people who are known
Bill Gates
to, so that's a dangerous thing, the connection. So I agree with you, Shanda. What do you think, Kim?
Well, I don't think she's going to end up suicided. I know that a lot of people think that. I actually think she's going to get a little bit of a slap on the wrist, and they'll kind of pursue this, and then they'll say, well, we don't really have enough evidence or whatever. And so I don't think she'll get much, and I don't think she'll be suicided. I think that because I think she was the brains actually behind the
I do too.
operation. And I think she's too protected because she was the brains behind the operation. I don't know how much I'm allowed to say.
Right, I know,
guys'
right?
show.
YouTube.
I say a lot on mine, though. I kind of go all out with it, and I'm just say, screw it. I'm just going to tell everybody what I think. So I think Jeffrey Epstein was actually a recruit himself, and he couldn't be trusted or relied on to keep his mouth shut. But I think Ghislaine can be. So, but I actually also don't think that there is a replacement at the moment. I actually think this was kind of an old school tactic that was used by certain powers that be that wanted to use this sort of blackmail tactic. And I'm not sure if it's been employed in recent as much in this way, in this same way.
Right.
I think it was something that they were doing for a while, but I don't know if they're
reality is changing. Consensus is changing. I mean, just where we are now compared to where we were 30 years ago, the public viewed being with a younger woman or younger girl. I'm going to say girl because these were girls, much different than nowadays. And the proof of that is in just yesterday, we saw, what is it? Matt Gaetz. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. He's got some allegations for being with a 17-year-old girl. And so absolutely, I agree. I think that, everything's changing the way that our society works around this. Aj, you want to hit the play?
Good morning, Robin. This is a truly bizarre story. This morning, the Florida congressman is reportedly under federal investigation, and now he is fighting back. He is adamant that these allegations of sexual misconduct are false, and in a head-scratching interview overnight, he says this is all rooted in an attempt to extort him. Overnight, Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz, a rising conservative star and close ally of former President Trump, insisting he did nothing wrong.
It is a horrible allegation, and it is a lie.
The New York Times breaking the news, reporting the Justice Department is investigating whether Gaetz had a sexual relationship with a 17-year-old girl and paid for her to travel with him, potentially violating sex trafficking laws. A source aware of the investigation has confirmed some details to ABC News.
The person doesn't exist. I have not had a relationship with a 17-year-old. That is totally false.
Gaetz reportedly telling Axios, I have definitely in my single days provided for women I've dated. I've paid for flights, for hotel rooms. I've been, generous as a partner. I think someone is trying to make that look criminal when it is not, adding he is, quote, absolutely confident none of the women were underage. Overnight, Gaetz claiming he's the actual victim here of an extortion scheme.
A person demanded $25 million in exchange for making horrible sex trafficking allegations against me go away.
He says the investigation is part of a politically motivated campaign to damage his reputation. But the probe was reportedly launched last year in the final months of the Trump administration.
I do believe that there are people at the Department of Justice who are trying to smear me.
The interview leaving the Fox News host baffled.
If you just saw our Matt Gaetz interview, that was one of the weirdest interviews I've ever conducted.
So that was the craziest part to me. Like, what? That was the craziest interview Tucker's ever done? What?
So, and the interesting thing is that, this investigation has been going on a year, but it's kind of bananas that it comes out the day after Maxwell was charged with the same thing.
Right. He does look like Donny Osmond, so I had to throw that on there.
He's got some spectacular hair. I will admit to that.
You're jealous, we know.
I mean, it's a weird thing because that they do this to smear candidates and campaigns all the time. Mm-hmm. So there's one half of that, and then there's also, of course, believing all women, which of course, is very important. But then it's the swamp, and it's so corrupt as hell down there. It's just hard to. I personally don't know enough about it, but, I heard some other charges that were coming out in the Maxwell case that were even worse than any of this. So there's a lot to unpack.
Right. Isn't it crazy, though, that this story with Matt Gaetz is getting more press right now than the story of Eric Swalwell, who was having a relationship with a spy?
Yeah.
Yes. Good point.
Where are our priorities as a country,
They're not. It's just what, it's the manufacturing consent narrative put out by the CIA. It just it never ends.
Well, Matt Gaetz is like fairly anti-establishment. He is actually on the Republican side. Right. I could see the Republicans trying to take him down also. Mm-hmm. So I don't think just the Democrats, when they say, oh, well, this isn't really politically motivated because this was launched under Trump's administration. Well, a lot of people, I think, were going after Trump within his administration. Yeah. We know that. I mean, they were publishing op-eds in like the Washington Post saying, I am the resistance from the inside, right? I mean, we know that people were doing this. So Matt Gaetz he was the first Republican to reject corporate PAC money. He was a Republican that worked regularly with Ro Khanna, worked regularly with Tulsi Gabbard, worked with a lot of progressives on a lot of very populist issues, was very much for free Julian Assange. These were the type, Matt Gaetz doesn't fit the typical Republican establishment mold. And so I could definitely see them viewing him as a real threat. The Republican establishment wanted Trump gone as well. Right. And they didn't like the disruption. They want to go back to the, same old Mitch McConnell way.
They're not in control. And if they can't be bought and they can't be corrupted, then they have to do something else.
Yeah. Joy, you want to get in here on this one or?
I totally agree with you guys. I mean, it's, and I actually didn't know that stuff about Matt Kim. So thank you for sharing that. I'm going to have to look into him more as well, because now that definitely makes sense of why they don't want him. It's interesting that those things show him more progressive leaning than some of the Democrats.
No, the
irony.
Yeah, the irony.
Yeah, and Matt's also an he's an anti-war Republican.
Excellent.
So
we need more of them. There is a lot of them. There really is that are out there in protest. So you want out of these wars just as much as I don't even call myself far left anymore. I don't even know what the hell to call myself anymore. I haven't known what to call myself in years. So I'm just independent, and I fly above the duopoly. Call me what you will, right? New report came out last night that kind of shocked me. I had to actually go verify that it was true. We have 86 people in the United States that are being monitored by the health department and the CDC for Ebola. Oh, yeah.
Government-approved narrative behind the current pandemic, the powers that be sense that they're losing control over the people that narrative was designed to subjugate. Enter Ebola. Washington State, March 26, 2021. Nearly 24 people are being monitored for the Ebola virus in Washington State, after traveling to African countries where infection rates have spiked in recent months, health officials said Friday. The state has placed 23 persons under monitoring for the deadly disease for 21 days after they returned to the U.S. from Guinea and the Democratic Republic of Congo, the state's health department said in a press release. The virus has begun to ravage parts of a prefecture in Guinea, a country where thousands of people succumbed to the virus between 2014 and 2016, along with the North Kivu province in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Ebola, far deadlier than the current virus, took at least 11,300 lives in Guinea, which has a population of 12 million, during the 2014 outbreak.
So there you have it. Another reason for them to stoke some fear in the country. It's kind of weird. I'm not seeing any mainstream media talking about this yet. I think it'll be weaponized against us. But I did go verify with the health departments in Washington State and Oregon that, yes, they are actually monitoring people coming out of West Africa. What do you guys think of this?
I've been aware of it for a couple weeks now. This is literally what happens when you start messing with Mother Nature and it gets worse. It's Ebola is actually scary compared to a lot of things that are used in the scare tactics. So yeah, it's not a good situation. And I would expect more of them to keep happening.
Yeah.
I'm really I'm confused on this because so when Ebola broke out the first or the big time, I don't know. I don't know if it's the first time because I think there's been
right.
They rushed and didn't they make a vaccine similar to what they've done now? So didn't they rush and then they were like, we got a vaccine. And so don't they have this vaccine? I'm pretty sure it's called Ervebo. It actually uses the same technology that I think the Johnson & Johnson one might have. So it's not an mRNA. But anyway, they made this vaccine. So why weren't if that vaccine works, why weren't these people vaccinated before going?
There's no money down there. Come on.
Why weren't they vaccinated before they went? And then they went and then they were fine. And now they're here. And so there shouldn't be an issue if this vaccine was like, why are we still having the outbreak if there's this vaccine? Like, what is going on?
That's part of the problem of them not really actually working. They don't want to have that conversation, especially right now when we're paying, hundreds of billions of dollars. So, I find
it so odd that, we haven't been able to cure the common cold ever a virus, right? And now within the last 2 years, we've seen them swing around and say, well, we have a vaccine for this, we have a vaccine for that, we have a vaccine for this. Like, seriously? And we're supposed to believe it.
Right. And then they don't work apparently, because now we've got 23 people in quarantine thinking that they might have Ebola in the United States in 2021 after a 2014 outbreak of Ebola.
Well, and here's the other thing is yellow fever also mimics it, which also mimics COVID. And they ramp up this narrative, yet really never do anything about it, except for now that they're about to release millions of GMO mosquitoes all across the country, which previously had only been done in Key West area. So just imagine what is going to happen when we continue to keep this narrative going. It's insane to me that the science has become the religion. And we're not to question, we're not to study, we're not to research, we're not to try and recreate anything. We are to believe the bought and paid for narrative.
And don't you dare bring in any other facts.
Don't you
no
one bit. Don't you dare.
No facts from you, okay? Don't want to hear it.
No, just keep eating that truck stop food. It's delicious.
Hey,
good for your health.
Talking about my truck stop nachos. I love my truck stop nachos. Okay,
gas station sushi, baby. Can't wait.
The best sushi I ever had was at Harbor View Hospital in Seattle. But on another note, so moving on moving on to the George Floyd trial. I think we got a couple of you're on the right one. Yeah.
Day 3.
We're going to begin, of course, in Minneapolis, where the Derek Chauvin trial resumes this morning, with prosecutors expected to call investigators and then expert witnesses to testify about George Floyd's death. Yesterday, we heard very emotional testimony from several witnesses, including a little 9-year-old girl who watched a fired police officer kneel on Floyd's neck for more than 9 minutes. Jamie Yuccas is covering the trial. Jamie, why was their testimony so significant? It was very difficult to hear those little voices.
I think it was not only difficult, but it was impactful. The state's hoping that those young people, Gail, who testified, will make a big impression on the jury. We know one juror is a grandmother who studied child psychology and could understand how witnessing this traumatic event may have changed these young people's lives. Again, we do want to warn you, the video is disturbing.
Prosecutors witnessed Darnella Frazier was 17 years old when she saw Derek Chauvin kneeling on George Floyd's neck.
I heard George Floyd saying, "I can't breathe, please get off of me. I can't breathe." He cried for his mom. He was in pain.
She recorded the nearly 10-minute video of Floyd's death.
It's been nights. I stayed up apologizing and apologizing to to George Floyd for not doing more and not physically interacting and not saving his life.
Darnella's 9-year-old cousin, Judea Reynolds, was with her that day and saw the same scene.
I was sad and kind of mad. It felt like he was stopping his breathing, and it's kind of like hurting.
Just heart-wrenching that somebody who was trained to serve and protect our community is traumatizing children by his actions, and they have to be put on trial. I mean, this is what we came to. This is what we've come to. Go ahead and jump in if you want. Okay, we'll move on.
Yeah, I can't see what that is.
Those are the tweets that you sent me, Joy. So one says a 9-year-old testified in a murder case is too heartbreaking for words. I have to agree. What is the other one? The defense of Chauvin is a powerful and honest indictment of the policy itself. No. Chauvin did what he was trained to do. So.
But at the same time, it's like, where's his personal responsibility? Yes, that is correct. They are trained to do that. And some of it's innate and racism, but that does not make him unaccountable for being a freaking murderer.
I agree.
And it's to the... Oh, go for it.
I was just going to ask, like, are you worried about a repeat of last summer?
Yes.
Yeah,
it's gonna be so much worse.
We're gonna have a barbecue if it's not right.
If they let him off, oh my God, it'll look like a picnic last year. And maybe that's, I'm seeing hashtag general strike all the time on Twitter. It's like, let's do something. When is this gonna happen? And unfortunately, it may take something like that for an uprising, and all of us just get in the streets and say, fuck this. This is too much. This is inhumane. It's awful. It's barbaric. If another country was doing this to us, we'd be bombing them. Stop.
Well, and that's why I brought the next couple clips, because this was in London last week, and that was discussed. It's like people are in the streets, but they're not showing. They only show the narrative that spins. You only hear, ooh, Portland Antifa again. Their headquarters, right? I mean, it's such a policy spin for increased lockdowns, increased surveillance, increased AI funded, now we've got fully automated AI drones that can carry weapons with facial recognition, with masks on. It's all fitting into their little plan a little too comfortably for me. And I do believe that the power of the people is going to win this situation, because I have to believe that, just as a mother and as a person who cares about our future. But listen to some of the speeches that were happening in the UK last week, and there's more of them planned for this weekend.
Serious nutcases, grandma killers, whatever they think of, fascists. Is there a flag out there somewhere or something? The mainstream media is never, ever going to be on our side, because they are owned and controlled by the very people we're fighting against.
Yeah.
We're never going to get their acceptance, and we should stop seeking it, because we're well beyond that now. We're in a psychological war, and we are the front line. All those people that are home getting their entire narrative from the BBC are never going to come and fight for us, but that doesn't mean that we don't fight for them. I've got nothing but love for every single one of you, for every single police officer, for every single counter-protester, for every single person sat at home watching us and shaking their head. Because hate and division is what's got us in this mess, and love and unity is what is going to get us out of it. The psychological war is dangling the carrot in front of us. If you do this, you can get your life back. If you do X, Y, and Z, you can get your life back. Newsflash. Governments do not take away freedoms and impose draconian impositions just to reverse it. In the same way a robber doesn't turn up the following morning and go, oh mate, sorry, here's your Xbox. It's not going to happen. But we take it back, and taking it back is a lot easier than people think. It's simply by non-compliance. We are the 99.99%, and when we stand together, it's over. was just a 3-week lockdown to flatten the curve. And when the curve was flatter than building 7, it was extended and expanded because it was never about health, it was about control.
Say, is there a cut on that? Yeah, you got the cut. Good job.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I brought I brought the ending of his too. You know, this was hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people out in the street, and they have another one planned with next weekend also. So, you know, as these are the same people that are fighting for Assange, these are the same people that are protesting the anti-protest legislation that we're seeing all around the world. You know, this to me, this is the 99%, and this is coming together in ways that are not always ideologically succinct, but financially succinct. And we're seeing that all over the world, and that to me gives me a little bit of hope.
Yeah, it gives me hope too. But Joy, you say, oh, everybody says general strike. You know, as somebody who goes out on the front lines for these protests for a gamut of different reasons, people are not getting out in the streets. They love to tweet general strike and they love to put on Facebook general strike. But when it actually comes to getting your ass out in the street and supporting these movements, we really see a lack of it. So yeah, I think it's going to take a lot to pop off this summer for massive amounts of people to get in the street. Amber, is this second part or something?
Yeah, this is the second part of that that speech he gave in front of hundreds of thousands.
We are the 99.99%. We decide our futures, not them.
Yes!
But when we stand together in non-compliance, this whole game is over. It's over in 20 minutes.
Yep.
Centuries from now, people will talk about this time in history. Not because we were stripped of our humanity, but because we stripped away the veneer of authority and we took our humanity back. We are free, sovereign human beings, and it's time to start acting like it. I'll just leave you with this from Her Majesty's government. No, it says Her Majesty's government. It ain't yours and it ain't mine. We're locking you down. It's only 3 weeks. Sign up to Netflix, put up your feet. We'll pay your wages, just keep your eyes shut, keep your head down, no family meetups. Flick on the TV and bathe in the fear. Because if you turn that propaganda off, this pandemic disappears. Control the virus. Please stay alert, but not to the facts, because facts can cause hurt. It says here you've been sharing some uncomfortable facts on Facebook, sir. 8 p.m. Thursday, come to your door. Bid farewell to your freedoms with a round of applause. And while hospitals sit empty, it's tumbleweed round the clock. The only thing going viral here is going viral on TikTok. Do not resuscitate, do not resuscitate. These orders come from on high, because the best way to protect the elderly is by allowing them to die. He can't breathe, we will take the knee. Not you, cover your face, and here's a bag full of muzzles for the kiddies. What do you mean you're exempt? Do as you're told. You thought this was about health. Nah, mate, this is about control. Yeah! So give us your arm, and give us your vein, because there's no human rights when you belong to the state. We've sold your body and we've sold you lies. Sold to the highest bidder, Bill Gates and his wife. Is this some kind of resistance, London? Is this some kind of resistance, London? Yeah, that's right. The people have risen. We reject this control. We reject this division. We are the ocean. We have the power. We are everything to which they aspire.
Yeah.
I am you. I love you. And you are me. We are the 99%. We are humanity.
We are the 99. Yeah, I love that.
So that, it's not exactly what people think it is, but it's literally people really getting out in the street that have never been. And to me, that's more powerful than the people who've been there all along. As somebody who's been in the streets since WTO, I see that full-time, that full circle is coming close, because this is impacting so many people in so many different ways, and people are not going to keep up the charade.
I just want to take him and put him in my pocket anytime I need inspiration, and just give him some love.
I love it, Joy. I loved his voice too. I agree. Okay, so we have to talk about the kids in the cages, right? Because the Biden administration has done its damnedest to make sure that nobody is seeing that the situation has gotten much worse under Biden than it was even under Trump. And remember, we were told vote blue if you don't like kids in cages. So the best thing is just pretend it's not happening. And I see a lot of neolibs actually doing that, but it's easy to do when mainstream media won't let the pictures out. I have been chasing the story for 3 or 4 days, trying to get you guys video and pictures, which we're seeing finally for the first time, but they're being censored all across the board, YouTube, whatever, So Linda Seltzer put this out. Joy sent this to me. She says, have you seen the images of kids in cages at the border during the Biden administration? Did you know that Biden administration has blocked access to the media? Why are we all horrified at the sight of kids in cages during Trump, but we're mostly silent? Why are we searching for excuses for Biden because he's a bit more gentle and not on Twitter at 3 a.m.? But the injustice is still the same. The fight for justice has to be constant regardless of who's in power. I'm outraged, disappointed, tired. I'm going to call someone because I can't sleep and this is not right. We had a feeling that the resistance would die down, but didn't think it would be this quick. I don't always agree with Linda Seltzer. Actually, that's kind of a point of contention with me, but I do agree with her comment on this.
I'm just glad someone, a public speaker is a public figure speaking out on it, because the fact that I actually didn't know, I kind of suspected Biden's people were kind of stopping filming and stuff, but to have it come out in an article and be proven is pretty valid and good for people to know. Kim, what's your reaction to that?
Well, Biden actually admitted that they weren't allowing press in to these facilities during his press conference, and he was pressed on that by the MSNBC reporter. Actually, I was really surprised, but she's fantastic. And she was the only one who actually did it journalism during that press conference. She was the only one that pushed Biden. And she just kept asking him over and over, why is the press not allowed in there? And will you commit to allowing press? And when will you commit to allowing press into these facilities to see what is going on? And Biden's answer is basically, well, once we solve it and we've got, he didn't say it like this, but he says, we will, eventually. And his point is, we will when we like the photos you're going to see, that you're going to end up taking. So when we feel like we've reached a point where the problem is solved and you're going to get beautiful photographs of kids coloring and, and they've got flowers in their rooms and all that stuff, then that's when we're going to let you in. But right now we're not going to let you. And, look, for me, I feel like this is a really tough situation. It was a tough situation for Trump. And when people were calling him out on it, I was like, this is a really hard situation. And for Biden, it's a really hard situation. And I give him the same leeway that I gave Trump on this. Neither of them expected the sheer number of people to suddenly show up, and they just don't have the facilities for these people. Right. So it's hard. We can't erect buildings out of nowhere. And overnight, as we've seen, China can, apparently they could build entire hospitals in 10 days, but we can't. And so we don't have the ability to just erect buildings for these children or move them along faster. They need sponsors, they need homes, they need facilities. We don't have the capacity because there was just no real, I guess, and I don't know why Biden and his administration didn't think that the rhetoric coming from them wouldn't lead to a surge, but they really thought it wouldn't. And on top of that, it wasn't just that with the pandemic causing mass, it was already bad in the Northern Triangle. And then you add a pandemic on top of it with the world shutting down, and it made it even worse. I mean, they rely on a lot of coffee industry. A lot of people were not going to work drinking coffee anymore. So, I don't know what they expected. They should have prepared for this flood. They think it's going to calm down. I don't think it will.
Yeah.
I think they're, this is the part that bothers me is they don't ever tie it to their own policies. And the Biden administration's imperialism and actions in Central and South America are absolutely the root cause to all of this situation. Absolutely. And so they knew as soon as he was elected that it was going to get way worse. They knew. The people living there knew it was back to the Obama years and we were screwed. Get the hell out of here. So I can't imagine that they didn't expect this. They just want to ignore it. and I give them zero leeway because we are the entire cause of this situation.
Well, and didn't you see in the press conference where he blamed it on gangs? He's like, well, they've got issues like gangs, and that, he says it's problems inside of their country that have been created. And he lists all these things, but he didn't list, American imperialism, the banana republics, the regime change attempts, the fact that we have instilled authoritarians even over democracy because we wanted certain people that were friendly to the US. I mean, totally didn't bring up any of that, just blamed it on all these other things. And then on top of it says, and we don't want to help those countries by giving money to the governments because the governments are corrupt. Yeah. So what we do is we go around and we give it to the companies instead, and we try to give the companies the money in order to help the people. And it's like, this isn't going to help in the long run or in the short term, the situation, but yeah.
And he said last week he was going to start spraying glyphosate, because that's the part of this conversation that everybody's doesn't really focus on, is the reason that there is such a vacuum in those countries is because many people have died from liver failure and health disease, different health situations caused by the chemicals we've been spraying. And that takes years. That's a 30-year process. I mean, we're living it here in the United States, and they just went right back to it, pretending that nothing's going to happen. It's just another contract for us to keep spraying toxins and making everybody sick, and never, acknowledging the fallout of any of it.
Well, we got to get that cocaine to dry out faster. You know how that is. So we're coming up on the hour, or we're a little past the hour on here. We got the Fee says. Fee says this is happening under Biden. I agree. Thank you, Fee. We love Fee says. And let's see. Okay. Oh, I guess we're going to closing. Okay. So thank you so much for joining us, Kim. I want to give everybody a chance to say what they're up to this week, how you can find them, how you can get a hold of them. So starting with Kim.
Well, thank you first of all for having me here. This was a lot of fun. You can always find me on YouTube, Rockfin. And my website, KimIverson.com. That's how you can find me. So that's
not Twitter.
I'm not. I don't do Twitter. I think there are Twitter accounts that look like me, but they're not me. I don't like Twitter. I'm not on Twitter. I hate Twitter.
I agree. I'm going to take a page from your book. I have never been a big Twitter girl, but since I've been doing this, I've been kind of pushed over to Twitter. I'm just going to stay the hell off Twitter because
just don't do it. There's no need. There's really no need. Once you leave it, you're like, there's no need.
Yeah, I don't miss it when I don't check into it for sure. Joy, what are you up to this week? Who do you got coming on your show?
Well, first of all, thank you so much, Kim. You were great. And, I'm glad you had fun with us. We try to keep it, we have serious subjects, but we try to make some laughs and stuff. So thank you so much. As far as me, I'm going to be a guest on Jen Perelman's show tomorrow night and a guest on Vanguard on Monday. I have a few guests coming up, but the dates have not been solidified, so I don't want to give them out as of yet. But you guys know you can always get my parody book at savageandpat.com.
So Amber, you're heading out on the road. You're going to get the boots in the street coming up this week. What are you up to?
Yeah, I'm still gonna try and make next Monday's show in the evening for the night dive, and then I may just go visit some people at the border, see if I can get some footage, and then I will be in LA for the Free Assange Fuck Censorship rally next weekend. I'm very excited about not this coming weekend, but the following week on the 11th and 12th. And 10th, I believe. So there are Assange events happening all across the country and across the globe, and always looking for more organizers. If you're interested, reach out. And if Assange is extradited to the United States, that's a very dangerous precedent for anybody with an open mind to really work on this as a country and keep talking about it.
Absolutely. So I hope you caught that. Amber's router was dragging her through the mud again. So but I think you could hear what she was saying. You can join me. I know, right? You can join me Friday night for The Accidental Activist. We're going to do part 2 of our Escape to Epstein Island. Yeah, that's what we're calling it. And then, of course, Beauty and the Boomer every Saturday night with our engineer, my fave, Rick LaFave. So you can join us. Kim, thank you again. It was wonderful having you on. I love having a true panel of all women for Women's Wednesday. It's kind of an oddity. And we're going to go out with a little bit of Thunderstruck by Walk Off the Earth.